That's a very good question. What does the co-lead game designer of Uncharted 3 do?
We're primarily in charge of making sure that the game. How do you even describe it? It's so hard. I mean, I look at it as a game designer being a storyteller, the director, the crafter of the experience. A co-lead game designer at Naughty Dog is responsible for whatever we got to do right now.
That can mean maybe coming up with a good idea. It very often means listening to good ideas from our teammates all around us, not just on the design team, but artists and the animators, the programmers, the audio people, the visual effects guys that we work with, all are terrific game designers in their own ways.
We wear a lot of hats. I mean, all the leads at Naughty Dog, we have a lot more responsibility, I think, than a lot of studios because we don't have in-house producers. We kind of are the managers and producers of the team.
They're really the ones who handle the scheduling and making sure that all of the individual animations and foreground assets and physics assets and whatever else may be necessary for their levels get into the game at the right time and work awesome and have the design specs and everything of that sort.
My main job is sort of corralling the designers into a sort of coherent vision for what the game is going to come out like and how we translate what we call the active cinematic experience into a gameplay that the player's going to like and be interested in all the time.
I think a game designer's first and most important role is to be an advocate for the player. We're always thinking about the player's experience, really from the very beginning when they become aware of the game, all the way through to when they're putting in their 100th hour in our multiplayer game. We're always thinking about how can we make their experience better, how can we draw them further into the fictional interactive world that we've created, and how can we entertain them and surprise them and delight them.
We're unwilling to settle for anything other than what we consider to be the best possible experience that we can create.
The whole idea of the active cinematic experience, the playable Hollywood blockbuster, only barely made it in. There was like one moment in Uncharted 1 that pretty much everyone picked out as like, that's the bit that we want to do in Uncharted 2. And so Uncharted 2 was, hey, that little moment, that 30 seconds of gameplay, how do we make a game that evokes that the entire time?
Uncharted 2 was an amazing experience, putting that game together, creating all of that new technology, and doing the groundbreaking things that we did with it. There were so many things in Uncharted 2 that we did that had never been done before. In particular, in terms of having characters running around, interacting on an environment that could move. And so I guess in the process of making Uncharted 3, we really took that idea and ran with it.
We now felt like we had more freedom and time and energy to explore more of the artistic aspects of it. As storytellers, it's really important to us that the viewer is engaged with our characters. What we really put a lot of focus on, especially with Drake, is to convey thought through his body language. When he's in an environment where, a tense environment, like we want him to show that. When he's relaxed, we want you to see that. And so we've been able to change the way that he moves based on his environment, based on where he's at in the story. There might be sections where Drake is just completely exhausted, and when you stop moving him, he'll just collapse to the ground, and you kind of pick him back up again, and you feel kind of like, come on, like, let's go, it's just a little bit further, we can do this. And it's something that I hope the players appreciate.
Suddenly we have the great majority of the technology that we need to make the type of game that we wanted to make from the beginning. And the question becomes, well, where do we go from here? Immediately we thought about desert, sand. Sand is a very big challenge technologically. It flows and moves and mounds and changes and shifts like water, but also in a more viscous way. So there are all sorts of different gameplay ideas that came from that.
I
if we could do anything at all like we wanted to do with the same kind of technology, what could we do? And that's what's led us to think of insane things like a whole level which turns, through 90 degrees at key stages of the gameplay on the sinking cruise ship.
The cruise ship is one of the most technologically advanced levels I've ever worked on, and certainly I think any other company's worked on. Like the cruise ship's being driven by a real-time wave ocean simulation that drives the animation of the ship, so it never cycles the same way twice. It feels different every time you play it.
When I started the cruise ship, I was actually planning on faking most of that with animation. But then we have this awesome guy, Carlos Gonzalez here, and he was like, why would you do that? Why would you fake it with an animation when we can make you a fully procedural ocean? But that's one of the other really funny things about Naughty Dog is that I asked for a simpler feature, and Carlos gave me a real-time fully procedural ocean. That's how Naughty Dog rolls.
The sort of big thing that we try to do is to make sure that our multiplayer this time felt much more diverse and interesting, and sort of making a big ticket item.
So what does Uncharted mean, right? Like, it's not only like this big cinematic experience, right? It's also about like your comrades, right? Like the people who you're working with all the time. Right? And so we looked at that and like, well, what do we do about that? Okay, well, let's come up with the buddy system. And in single player, we have this cargo plane, and it's really cool sequence in single player. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And I saw that, and I went to Evan Wells. I said, Evan, we need to use that in multiplayer. I'm thinking like the plane's going to come down this runway. There's going to be moving trucks around the plane. You're going to be jumping plane to plane to truck to plane. It's going to be epic. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. It was one of the most hardest things I've done in my entire life. I saw that and I was like, I thought about all the people that went into making that, the animators and the foreground artists, and Kirk just sitting there and hooking everything up in all the different possible ways it could work. And I was like, we're crazy. So many weeks of work went into less than a 30-second sequence. I look at the stuff that we do, and I can't believe how much love each individual person puts into the stuff that they're responsible for.
I think that kind of attention to detail is really important for a number of different reasons, but the most important reason is that people recognize it and they love it.
It's those moments that make a Naughty Dog game different. So when we ask why are we passionate about what we do, it's because we're given the opportunity to do this, and we're surrounded by people who can do it and who want to do it.
We have an incredible amount of resources at our disposal, but we think so much bigger than what we have, that there's always something that's pushing us to go a little bit further.
The way the studio gets things done is because people care. And the mentality of the company is, if we see you care so much, then we'll let you go and go take care of it. And I think that's really what makes the company run. Games start simultaneously in the hands of the designers and then in the hands of the writers, Amy specifically. And so they're kind of in parallel. Amy's writing the story and the designers are designing levels. So sometimes a level is designed long before we have any clue what the story is. It's a very creative environment. And I think in all creative environments, you can't just start 2 years before the project is supposed to be released and say, okay, here's a blueprint of what it's supposed to be. Everyone go off, do their thing, and then we'll meet back here in 2 years and we'll be perfect. No. That's not how it works. One of the things that we wanted to do for this project was to improve the way that Dockers could work with Dungeon. It was a bit older that, we were foreseeing a lot more sort of action scenes and
events and all of those things, which require a lot more sort of specific control over the environment.
We've expanded the scope in pretty much every way. Every feature we could think of that would make the game better, we tried it. Most of the time we kept it in. A couple things we tried and didn't like, but in general we just made everything much bigger and better.
It's very creative in the beginning. After our brainstorming writings, we know that there's some things we can go off and start pushing the technology in the direction that we know might go. But yeah, the storyline, which characters, what they will do, that's all up in the air, and it really comes late in the project.
Come up with some part of the story that's really neat, but is not going to be very fun. You have to negotiate with the designers. Okay, how can we change the story slightly to make this gameplay fun? And then you have vice versa. If you have a really cool bit of gameplay that doesn't make any sense in the story at all, you have to figure, okay, what can we do? Can we add characters in? Can we take characters out? Can we move around? For instance, there's a chase scene in Yemen in Uncharted 3 where we're chasing a guy through a level. We had no idea who that guy was for, I'd say, about a year and a quarter. But we had the level. We made it. We didn't know who he was going to be. And then finally the story caught up, and then, boom, we know who that is now.
We're really approaching movie-like quality now in video games, and you have to put some serious effort into adding the detail. One of the main focuses is obviously characters. Our whole game is about characters and making sure that we can really deliver the environment and the storytelling that Amy and all of our designers want to portray in the game. We need to facilitate that somehow, and that is pushing the boundaries for how we do character animation, pushing the boundaries of grounding in the environment, things we didn't have in Uncharted 2 that just adds that little extra believability to the game. For example, if you're running really fast into a corridor with a 90-degree turn, you don't just happily take the corner, you actually kind of struggle, you touch the wall maybe to push yourself forward. That was one of the character and the animator's vision, if you will. They really wanted the characters to look. But on the other hand, we also have many customers, and one of them would be our game designers.
I remember Jacob Minkoff, one of the lead designers on U3. I remember at the very beginning, when he came up with the cruise ship level, and he kind of laid it all out. He was like, "Okay, tell me now if this is impossible." And we were like, "It's too cool to be impossible. We have to find a way to do it."
Ship seems like a great thing. Something which makes it more interesting because it's actually moving. So when you climb on the road, it's different from the biggest change for us in terms of graphics was that now we're talking about a whole group of things that is together, moving together. So essentially the levels that are strung together and the whole level is moving. It's not individual objects.
Да как ты это сделал, блядь?
We didn't have that before. So
У меня не получается.
we had technological challenges for almost every single level. The burning and collapsing buildings.
У меня не работает этот баг.
The cruise ship that is actually being driven
Как ты это сделал,
by
блядь?
huge enormous waves to rotate an environment 90 degrees and have the character and the objects and everything still work. And now you're walking on like the side of the environment instead of the floor. It's not something that's trivially accomplished.
First is the water pouring down the hallways. We tried a bunch of different things. Our original plan was to do it using like some sort of real-time physics stuff, and then we tried offline physics, and then we went back to real-time, and then we finally came up with animating offline physics simulations, and then bringing them into the game, and then mixing them with different real-time physics at the same time, kind of a hybrid approach. And all of that stuff, we kept failing over and over until we finally figured it out. That's how almost all of the stuff gets in the game. We fail about 100 times, and then we get one. We finally figure it out, and then it's it.
There's a spark in
and everyone to create something, give them enough things to play with, they'll create something awesome. We love our open floor plan, the ability for everybody to hear what's going on just by sitting down. Just you're working normally, you will hear everything that's going on around you, which is awesome. It's a little getting used to if you're easily distracted, but sometimes being easily distracted is good because you'll be able to influence something that needs your input that maybe they didn't know they needed your input.
Не мое.
It is so fulfilling walking away and saying, you know what, that game we made, it wasn't just
Это вообще не мое.
which we hope, obviously, well received by our fans, but it
Я
was
вообще не
fun to
понимаю,
make.
как он это делает.
We're engineers, we're game players,
У меня
write
так не
story, we
получается,
write game design,
как у
but
него.
at the end of the day, we like playing games.
Visuals are like plot points. You don't just sort of write a story not knowing where you're going. You've got specific points you're trying to emphasize. Same thing with color. Color makes you feel a certain way. Pink, reds, greens, purples, all have an emotional effect on human beings. So you want to
Ай, я вообще,
in
блядь.
service of the story you're trying to tell.
You want the final product to be
Я вообще не понимаю, как он это сделал.
proud of, something that
Вообще не понимаю.
As an art director, you try to make sure the game is consistent. You try to make sure that using color and shape and
У меня
lighting
не получается так.
enhance the particular story we're telling. We want to make sure that everything,
Не знаю, я, конечно, попробую,
sadness,
но вряд ли так
happiness,
получится.
excitement, danger, low points, high points.
What really puts it together is the concept. The concept art,
И как долго он делает?
determine the lighting and the general macro of the look. It'll give you a good framing of the level and give you the feel, which is probably the most important thing. The artist needs to get the feel of the level so he can put appropriate details.
You always go to an amazing lost civilization that you've never seen before. And that's always the challenge to come up with. This one at San Landis, this lost Arabian city. It's in the middle of nowhere. And the hard part there is coming up with something that looks believable, you've never seen before, but also looks historically accurate.
You definitely have a lot of different.
Да нет, здесь нужно стрим запускать. А как я стрим запущу? Он только с 1000 подписчиков можно на телефоне слить. Я никак его не запущу. Только если ВК стримить. А потом с ВК видео скачивать. Перезаливать сюда.
The architectural style,
Какая-то хрень.
what are the sort of specific idioms that make something look authentic to that area, the motifs, what are they doing, what are the materials they're using.
Texture shader artists paint those surfaces with they put those into shaders, and then through the shader you can apply surface qualities like wetness or dryness or whatever you need. My team's responsible for all the weapons, props, vehicles, anything that moves in the game is not a character. Falls underneath the technical art / prop artist team.
We kind of take
Это
the world that's given
интересно.
to us and try to add motion to it. Try to add the subtleties.
Ну и куда ты, блядь, бежишь?
Environment
Хули, брат.
or take a collapse and add the dust, the debris, the volumetrics, and the word bang to it. Kind of like a cross on tape.
Man, that was close, huh?
Andy does a lot of research. The cool thing about the games is they're based in history and reality. So she always comes up with something that is real, authentic, exists in the world in terms of legend, and then we have to come up with what it looks like.
We do a lot of research, and hopefully it's tangible in the game when people play it. That the devil's in the details, and a lot of us are pretty kind of OCD, anal retentive, whatever you want to call it, about sort of perfecting the details of things. And so we want it to be right. If we're going to we're going on to do this game, we want it to be correct. this level takes place.
И что, получается, все главы пропустил?
We do a ton of
Все
research to
пробежал,
make
что ли?
sure that it's accurate.
She holds us pretty true to history, so you can't just go crazy and like come up with
Где
all
он
sorts
оказался?
of fanciful stuff. It has
Ух
to
ты,
be
блядь,
accurate.
нифига себе.
So
Наконец-то
that's the
говоришь,
challenge
пожалуйста.
in terms of making these civilizations that look
Вот это он
incredible,
пробежал.
but everything in there is based on something we've done research about.
Как же
Working
пойти
reference
ставить?
we can get our hands on, to see, you know, how other people represented this before.
Может побежать?
What
А,
do we
вот,
do
понятно.
differently, you know, what are our favorite elements of that? What are the things that, you know, are like those key moments, you know?
We tend to go a little bit nuts in terms of gathering reference, in terms of talking about it, in terms of
Ох ты, блядь.
watching movies. We even had some of our team sliding down
Почему
sand
дальше не побежать,
dunes in the
интересно?
desert to figure out just what
Опять
that would
снова
look like. It's a
заходит.
very, very crazy, fun trip.
Делает то же
But it
самое.
was fascinating and really actually inspiring to see that when you step in this really soft sand, the sand
Ох,
flowing
по
down the
воздуху
ridge
бежит.
actually looks so
Он
liquid,
бежит по
almost
воздуху.
kind of equivalent to mercury. There's a little bit of viscosity to it, but it actually looks like a liquid. And so we just went out there with our cameras, got sand everywhere, and just pulled in a dozen hours of amazing reference. Us diving down the dunes, of us running up and down the dunes and crawling different ways that you would actually move if you were tired, because it was 114 degrees outside and we were exhausted. After collecting ridiculous amounts of reference, we tend to just have at it, in the sense that let's just start building things. There's definitely a degree of, okay, let's figure out the big shapes and let's figure out the big picture. But we are detail obsessed. So we sometimes go right for the details. And that sometimes isn't so bad.
Putting the details in the environment is actually a Naughty Dog quality, almost to a fault. You know, and you know, we actually have to stop ourselves from just putting too much.
I assume Rich talked a lot about how just in depth he went to making sure that London Fog was completely authentic. And I can't say I was part of that. It would have just been just a few too many British people in the kitchen, if you will. Had we all kind of ganged up and tried to create it as authentically as possible. But I certainly did witness that, and it's really nice to see whenever Naughty Dog gets that into the details. I was particularly concerned about people in the UK feeling like this was a real place, somewhere that maybe they recognised if they travelled to the east end of London. So that was a fairly easy sell with their teammates.
Typical bloody yank phone talk.
It felt like we'd already kind of hit the peak. How do we beat that? How do you beat so many Game of the Year awards? Do you even try? And yes, you definitely try. Whether you succeed or not probably isn't so important.
Everybody has done such an amazing job. You walk through the studio and you hit any bar, and you got to take a double dip. Wait, what level is that? Who's working on that again? Because they're old.
Uncharted is probably the most exciting IP I've ever worked on, because of just the improvements in each iteration, just the improvements from 1, 2, and 3. The team continues to evolve and just get better. And whether that's just people that are just working really hard to create better content, or the new blood that we're bringing in every iteration that adds a new flavor to the DNA of the company, and just puts it to the next level, is just amazing. I can't wait for the next following games that we're going to do.
How do you my enemy in that?
Drake. My name. Drake.
It's always challenging when you're working in this genre and you're trying to come up with a sequel, because so much of the territory is so well trodden, and we have to find that sweet spot between surprising our fans and also providing the familiar experience that they want.
If you recall, the last time we went halfway around the world searching for a lost city, things got more than a little dicey.
Yeah, but this time we have the upper hand. Uncharted 3 has some big shoes to fill. Uncharted 2, we were very lucky. We got like tons of awards for that game. It's sort of like, where do we go now? You know? What the hell? Let's do it.
I think what would surprise people is that when we set out to figure out what we're going to do with each new game, a lot of it was driven by practical concerns rather than just sort of purely creative ones. People probably imagine we sit there and just sort of blue sky story and things like that. And actually what we do is we think, where have we not been? What technologies are we not pushed? What would challenge us as game developers? And what are some really awesome set pieces that would blow people's minds? And then we kind of write the story around that. And that sounds almost like an embarrassing admission, but I think it's the way it should be done.
Seriously, no, why don't you just come play with me? Those guys are not here for historical research and neither are we.
It's like right brain, left brain. Where one part is like dealing with the aesthetics and what you're trying to go for creatively. And the other part, of course, is like how to realize that. And, you know, that's usually a lot of problem solving. So you have to kind of like bring those together in a way that you get the most bang for the buck and get things to really come alive in the game.
From the very beginning, when we're coming up with a story, it's not just Amy, it's Amy and myself and Justin and Taylor and Richard and other people putting in their 2 cents for ideas. And the entire company really participates in that process. But even then, once we get to the stage, it's Amy's script, but then it's the actors' own input into their characters that influences the way that we end up doing the performances.
Rick, we must go, now! Yalla! Never a dull moment, huh, Sonny?
Why change now?
We want contributions from everybody. We carry that same philosophy onto the stage with the actors. We don't just go into the voice studio and stand an actor in front of a copy stand and a microphone and say, well, here's your lines, just read them. We shoot the story as if it were film or television or theater. And of course that means the actors get to sort of settle into their characters as well. They genuinely enjoy working together. And, you know, again, some of the best moments are completely improvised by them. And I will always give them credit for that. And some of the most sort of touching moments are because these aren't people that just met. You know, they've known each other for 5 years and they actually have this relationship.
Yeah, because actors have played these characters now for the 3rd game in a row. And they know these characters. They've helped build these characters really from scratch. It's really interesting to see them get to really kind of spread their wings isn't the right way to put it. These actors are getting a chance to sort of explore the corners of who these actors are, of who these characters are.
Let's get the mind games.
You know, if we come up with some ideas on the spot, we'll try them out and then we'll use them. I mean, probably one of the best examples of that is even the first game. Nolan and Emily had a scene where Elena's character had just caught up with Nathan Drake's character and she was pissed off. And we ran the scene a few times and Emily just said, hey, well, I feel like I should hit him here. And, you know, it wasn't in the script, but we thought, yeah, okay, that might actually be funny. So, we get in the scene and she does this like, and, of course, it looked great, and that ended up making it into the final cinematic in Uncharted 1. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. If you just watch their faces when they're saying a line, there's the essence of it right there. And we don't just kind of mimic it, but that is our reference. That is that's our launching off point. And then we take that and we enable our animators to interpret that in the way that's gonna serve us best. It's not here. We do not do and never have done any facial animation capture. There's a number of reasons for that. We actually looked into a couple of possibilities when we were first working on Uncharted 1, but ultimately it ends up giving us more limitations than it does flexibility. We have some phenomenal animators back in the office that can really craft the performance to be exactly what we want it to be. And when you're working with facial
пока не прошли. Вот.
you know, you're just kind of stuck with what you got.
Надо просто
You gotta
нереально.
spend all this time cleaning it up to get to where you want
Я
it
не
to
знаю,
be. So
сколько
why
они
not just
тренировались,
do what
задрали.
you want when you get there? Right?
You gotta find a way out of it fast. We're completing the performance that we started on the stage. You know, we have amazing actors who give us these incredible little vignettes of scenes that are very personal, and I love the energy that they have with each other, and we need to make sure that what they started is completed.
Nate, just who are we dealing with here?
The third outing in the series, you have to think about, how are you changing things up. And you want to do it in ways that are meaningful, but sometimes you arrive at them in ways that are sort of simple and obvious. And one of the things that immediately occurred to us is it would be more interesting to see a female antagonist this time.
Вот они проходят на PS3, вот такой. Плохо будет, я думаю, что видно. Вот он, таблица лидеров все. Нет, плохо. Фокусировка плохая, к сожалению. Вам не видно будет, сколько здесь. Это на PS3. Нет, это невозможно. Это невозможно. Вот на PS4, как они прошли.
It's been a lot of fun to have a
Вот рекорд.
female villain.
Вот 1954 рекорд.
Kind of wicked. She gets into your head, and she wants to
Ну это
know
просто
what
нереально.
and she wants
Я
to
так
know
точно не
what
пройду.
and she'll find
Я не
out.
представляю, сколько они эту игру задрачивали.
Sweet, and it's very
Но я так и не
unnerving
пройду.
in a good way. That's I think what makes
Я, конечно, попробую сейчас пройти, показать, как умею я. Но не факт, что, скорее всего, придется это видео монтировать, склейкой делать, потому что с раз не получится. Sullivan, конечно. Потому что у меня был лучший рекорд, по-моему, 54, что ли, минуты. Больше не получалось проходить быстрее. И не факт, что вообще удастся. Спустя запись. Ладно, я попробую.
Has some issues about loss and abandonment, and therefore keeps people at arm's distance. And when things get too real, he's real good at being real, but when things get too real, he might make himself scarce. We don't know people like that around.
We've been trying to reach it for over 24 hours. I need to take off my mask. You're using a prepaid phone? One of those contracts are really good. I've been working with Amy and Taylor on the Uncharted.
Камера телефона плохая, плохо фокусирует, плохо вам будет видно. Там не четко все. В общем, 39.54 рекорд все. Это мировой рекорд спидран по Uncharted. Судьба трека. А то, что он пошел 27 минут, это, мне кажется, какой-то фейк. Такого быть не может, что 27 минут. И как он по воздуху бежал, я не понимаю.
Because it's so we don't have like a typical structure where we have a producer that kind of goes around and coordinates all the various aspects of the game. And ultimately, what you see in the end result is in the cinematics is really the product of dozens of different people's ideas and vision. It's not just one person saying it's my way or the highway. Everything goes in.
It's hard, I think, as a writer to say, all right, everybody just trust me and come along on this journey with me, while you yourself are terrified that, you're hoping that all of these ideas coalesce.
Уж как они по Майнкрафту спидранят, я вообще не понимаю.
On the other hand, part of
Я мало того, что эту игру вообще не знаю. Даже не пробовал играть в нее. Они как-то ее спидранят. Пипец. Ну и затроты, мля.
It's going to be really gratifying when this thing that seemed like it was going to be impossible to do actually happens, and you can just sort of rain that down on the fans, and that's going to be sort of an amazing, amazing moment, I think. I'm looking forward to that. Here we go.